Liam Carter, 32, a single father and graphic designer, never imagined that stepping into a restaurant to save his female CEO from a terrible date would change his life. Ava Bennett, 30, beautiful, powerful, and single, has spent her life building her career but couldn't protect her heart. When the lines between boss and employee are broken, they face rumors, prejudice, and the hardest choices. Will love be strong enough to overcome all obstacles? Follow the story to the end, like, and comment with the city you're watching to let me know how far this story has come. The rain started just as Liam pulled into the parking lot of Giovanni's, the kind of upscale Italian place he'd never been able to afford on his own dime. He wasn't there to eat. He was there because his daughter's babysitter had texted him 20 minutes earlier saying she was running late, and the only place close enough to kill time without spending money was this restaurant's parking lot. He'd sit in the car, answer a few work emails, maybe scroll through his phone until it was safe to head home. But then he saw her. Ava Bennett sat alone at a table near the window, visible through the glass like a painting someone had hung in the wrong gallery. She wore a dark emerald dress that looked expensive even from a distance, her hair pulled back in a way that was elegant but not overdone. She was staring at her wine glass, turning it slowly between her fingers. There was no one sitting across from her, no coat draped over the opposite chair, no second glass of wine. Liam frowned. He'd worked for Ava for almost 6 months now, and in that time he'd learned to read her the way you learn to read a storm, by watching the small shifts, the tightening around her mouth, the way her shoulders set when she was about to deliver bad news in a meeting. Right now, even through a rain-streaked window, he could see the tension in her posture. She looked like someone trying very hard not to fall apart. He shouldn't care. She was his boss. She signed his paychecks. She was the reason he could afford his daughter's new winter coat and the after-school program that kept her safe while he worked late. Getting involved in her personal life was a terrible idea on every level. But he'd been watching for 5 minutes now, and no one had come back to the table. The waiter had stopped by twice, each time leaving with a polite nod and nothing ordered. Ava kept glancing at her phone, her jaw tightening each time she set it back down. Liam cursed under his breath, turned off the engine, and stepped out into the rain. The restaurant smelled like garlic and fresh bread, the kind of place where every table had a white cloth and the wine list was longer than the menu. The host looked at him like he'd wandered in from the wrong zip code, wet jacket, day-old stubble, work boots that squeaked on the tile floor. "I'm meeting someone," Liam said, and walked past before the guy could ask questions. Ava didn't see him coming. She was still staring at her wine glass when he pulled out the chair across from her and sat down. She looked up, startled, and for half a second he saw something raw in her expression, something hurt and angry and humiliated, before she locked it down behind the same mask she wore in the office. "Liam." Her voice was steady, but there was a question buried in it. "What are you doing here?" "Thought you could use some company," he said. She blinked, and he watched her process the situation. Her employee, soaking wet, sitting down at her table uninvited in the middle of what was clearly supposed to be a date. He could see her weighing whether to be offended, whether to send him away, whether to pretend everything was fine. Instead, she laughed. It was a short, brittle sound, but it was real. "That obvious, huh?" "Little bit." She picked up her wine glass, took a long drink, then set it down harder than she probably meant to. He left. About 10 minutes after we ordered drinks, said he had an emergency at work, didn't even wait for me to respond before he was out the door. Liam felt something tighten in his chest. "That's a coward's move. That's what I get for trying this again." She shook her head, and for a moment she looked younger than 30, like someone who'd been knocked down one too many times and was still trying to figure out how to stay standing. "I knew better. I should have stayed home." The waiter appeared, eyeing Liam with suspicion. "Sir, do you have a reservation?" "He's with me," Ava said, her voice sharp enough to cut. "Bring another glass and a menu." The waiter hesitated, then nodded and disappeared. Ava looked at Liam, and he could see her putting the pieces back together, pulling herself into the version of herself that ran a company and closed million-dollar deals. "You don't have to do this. I'm fine." "You're not," Liam said, "and neither am I, if I'm being honest. My daughter's babysitter is late, I'm sitting in a parking lot in the rain, and I just crashed my boss's terrible date. So let's call it even." That got another laugh out of her, softer this time. Your honesty is going to get you in trouble one day. Probably, but not tonight. The waiter came back with a menu and a wine glass, filled it without asking, and left again. Liam looked down at the menu and felt his stomach drop. He could maybe afford an appetizer if he skipped lunch tomorrow. Ava saw him hesitate. It's on me. You don't have to... Liam. She leaned forward and her eyes were serious now. You just saved me from sitting here alone, pretending I'm fine while every person in this restaurant feels sorry for me. Let me buy you dinner, please. He met her gaze, and for the first time since he'd started working for her, he saw past the CEO title, past the reputation, past the perfectly controlled exterior she showed the world. He saw someone who was tired of being alone. All right, he said, but I'm ordering the cheapest thing on the menu. Like hell you are, she flagged down the waiter. We'll start with the burrata, and bring the pappardelle with short rib. 2 orders. Liam raised an eyebrow. Bossy, even off the clock. It's a gift, she said, and this time when she smiled, it reached her eyes. 6 months earlier, Liam had walked into Ava's office with a portfolio he'd cobbled together from freelance gigs and a prayer that she wouldn't notice how desperate he was. He'd been out of work for 3 months. His savings were gone. His ex-wife had taken off 2 years prior, leaving him alone with their daughter and a stack of bills he couldn't pay. He was 2 weeks away from losing his apartment when a friend told him about an opening at Bennett Creative, a boutique agency that had been making waves in the industry. He hadn't expected to get an interview. He definitely hadn't expected Ava Bennett herself to be the one conducting it. She'd been younger than he'd imagined, sharper too. She'd flipped through his portfolio without saying a word, her expression unreadable, and Liam had felt every second of silence like a countdown to rejection. Then she'd looked up. This campaign you did for the nonprofit, how much time did you have? 2 days, Liam had said. They needed it fast. And the branding for the bakery? That was a favor for a friend. She couldn't afford an agency. Ava had closed the portfolio and leaned back in her chair. You're talented, you work fast, and you don't cut corners when it matters. She'd paused, studying him. You also look like you haven't slept in a week. What's the story? Liam had considered lying, but there was something in her gaze that made him think she'd see right through it. Single dad, trying to keep the lights on. How old's your daughter? 6. Ava had nodded, like that explained everything. Here's the deal. I'll hire you. Salary, benefits, the works. But I need someone who can handle tight deadlines and won't fold when clients get difficult. If you can do that, the job's yours. Liam had felt something crack open in his chest. Relief, gratitude, disbelief. I can do that. Good. She'd stood and offered her hand. Welcome to Bennett Creative. He'd shaken her hand, and in that moment, he'd made a promise to himself. He wouldn't screw this up. He'd show up early, stay late, deliver work that justified her faith in him. He owed her that much. What he hadn't expected was that keeping that promise would mean getting to know her. The first few weeks had been a blur of onboarding, learning the company's systems, and trying not to drown under the workload. Ava ran a tight ship, and her expectations were high. But she was fair. She didn't ask for anything she wasn't willing to do herself. She worked longer hours than anyone else in the office, stayed late to review campaigns, and never threw anyone under the bus when a client complained. Liam noticed other things too, like the way she took her coffee, black, no sugar, always in the same chipped mug she'd had since she started the company. The way she'd pause in the middle of a meeting and ask someone how their weekend had gone, genuinely listening to the answer. The way she deflected compliments but never forgot to give credit where it was due. She was tough, but she wasn't cruel. Demanding, but not unreasonable. And underneath all of it, Liam started to see the edges of something else, a loneliness that she wore like a second skin. It wasn't obvious. Ava was good at hiding it. But Liam had spent enough time alone himself to recognize the signs. The way she'd linger in the office after everyone else had gone home, like she didn't have anywhere better to be. The way she'd brush off invitations to after-work drinks with a polite smile and some excuse about deadlines. The way she'd sit at her desk, staring at her computer screen, looking like someone who'd forgotten how to leave. One night, about 2 months into the job, Liam had been working late on a campaign that was due the next morning. Most of the office had cleared out by 7, but Ava's light was still on. Around 9, he'd gotten stuck on a design element that wasn't working, and after 20 minutes of frustration, he'd knocked on her door. She'd looked up, surprised. "You're still here." "So are you." "Touché." She'd waved him in. "What's the problem?" He'd shown her the mock-up, explaining where he was stuck, and she'd leaned over his shoulder to look at the screen. She smelled like coffee and something faintly floral, and Liam had found himself hyper-aware of how close she was standing. "Try flipping the layout," she'd said. "Move the text block to the left and let the image breathe on the right." He'd made the change, and it had worked immediately. "You're good at this." "I better be. It's my company." But she'd smiled when she said it, and Liam had realized it was the first time he'd seen her look genuinely pleased about something. "Why are you still here?" he'd asked. She'd straightened, and the smile had faded a little. "Same reason you are, I guess. Nowhere else to be." It had been a throwaway comment, but it had stuck with him. Later, after he'd finished the campaign and headed home, he'd thought about what she'd said. Nowhere else to be. Like work wasn't just her priority. It was her whole life. After that, Liam started paying more attention. He noticed that Ava never talked about her personal life. She didn't wear a wedding ring. She didn't mention a boyfriend or a girlfriend. She didn't post on social media. He'd checked, out of curiosity. And when other people in the office gossiped about her, the consensus was always the same: brilliant, driven, and completely untouchable. But Liam didn't think she was untouchable. He thought she was lonely, and that was something he understood better than most. 3 months into the job, Liam's daughter had gotten sick, a fever that spiked high enough to scare him into taking her to urgent care. He'd texted Ava at 6 in the morning, explaining the situation and asking if he could work from home for the day. She'd responded within minutes. "Take care of her. Work can wait." He'd been grateful, but he'd also been surprised. Most bosses would have asked when he'd be back, whether he could still meet his deadlines. Ava hadn't. She'd just told him to take care of his kid. The next day, when he'd come back to the office, there'd been a gift bag on his desk. Inside was a stuffed penguin, soft, cartoonish, the kind of thing a 6-year-old would love, and a card that said, "Hope she feels better soon." Hey. Liam had stared at it for a long time, something warm and uncomfortable settling in his chest. It was a small gesture, the kind of thing you'd do for a coworker without thinking twice. But it felt bigger than that. It felt like Ava had seen him, not just as an employee, but as a person, as a father. He'd kept the card in his desk drawer, and every time he opened it, he'd thought about the woman who'd written it. The one who stayed late, worked weekends, and bought stuffed penguins for the kids of people she barely knew. That was when he'd started to wonder what her story was. What had made her this way, so careful, so guarded, so determined to keep everyone at arm's length? But it had taken another month before he'd found out. They'd been working late again, a pattern that had become routine, and Liam had gone to Ava's office to drop off some final revisions. She'd been sitting at her desk, staring at her phone with an expression he couldn't quite read. "Everything okay?" he'd asked. She'd looked up, startled, and for a second he'd thought she might brush him off. But then she'd sighed and set the phone down. "My ex just got engaged." Liam had blinked. "I didn't know you had an ex." "I don't talk about it." She'd leaned back in her chair, rubbing her temples. "We were together for 3 years. I thought we were building something. Turns out he was just waiting for someone better to come along." "That's rough. That's life." She'd tried to sound dismissive, but Liam had heard the edge in her voice. "He told me I worked too much, that I cared more about the company than I did about him. Maybe he was right, or maybe he was an idiot." Ava had looked at him, surprised, and then she'd laughed. A real laugh this time, not the polite, controlled version she used in meetings. "You don't pull punches, do you?" "Not when it matters." She'd studied him for a moment, and Liam had felt the air shift between them, something unspoken settling into place. "You're a good guy, Liam. Your daughter's lucky to have you." "I'm lucky to have her," he'd said. "She's the only thing that kept me going when everything else fell apart." Ava had nodded slowly, like she understood more than he'd said. "I think that's what scares me the most. Letting someone in and then watching them leave. I don't know if I can do that again." Liam had wanted to tell her that not everyone left, that some people stayed, even when it was hard. But he'd kept quiet, because he wasn't sure he had the right to say it. He was her employee. She was his boss. There were lines you didn't cross, so no matter how much you wanted to. But sitting there in her office, with the city lights glowing through the windows and the quiet hum of the empty building around them, Liam had felt something shift inside him, something he couldn't name but couldn't ignore either. The weeks that followed had blurred together. More late nights, more quiet conversations, more moments where Liam caught himself watching Ava when he thought she wasn't looking, the way she bit her lip when she was concentrating, the way she tucked a strand of hair behind her ear when she was nervous, the way she smiled when she thought no one was paying attention. He told himself it didn't mean anything, that he was just being observant, that it was normal to appreciate your boss as a person and not just as a title. But then one night, Ava had asked him to stay late to help her finalize a pitch for a new client. They'd worked until almost midnight, fueled by coffee and takeout, and when they'd finally finished, Ava had leaned back in her chair and groaned. "I'm getting too old for this," she'd said. "You're 30. 30 feels old when you spend every night in the office." Liam had looked at her, really looked at her, and seen the exhaustion in her eyes, the tension in her shoulders. "When's the last time you did something fun?" She'd frowned. Define fun. Something that's not work. Something that makes you happy. Ava had thought about it for a long time. "I don't know," she'd said finally. "It's been a while." "That's depressing." "Welcome to my life." Liam had hesitated, then said, "You should fix that." "How?" "I don't know. Go to a concert? Take a vacation? Try a terrible date with someone who won't ditch you at a restaurant." She'd raised an eyebrow. "Is that your way of telling me to get out more?" "It's my way of saying you deserve more than this." He gestured around the office. "More than just work." Ava had looked at him, and something in her expression had softened. "You're sweet, Liam, but I'm not sure I remember how to be anything other than this." "Then maybe you need someone to remind you." The words had hung in the air between them, heavier than he'd meant them to be. Ava had opened her mouth to respond, but before she could, her phone had buzzed. She'd glanced at it, and whatever moment had been building between them had shattered. "I should go," she'd said, standing abruptly. "It's late." "Yeah, of course." She'd gathered her things and left without another word, and Liam had sat alone in the conference room, wondering if he'd just crossed a line he couldn't uncross. The next few weeks had been awkward, not hostile but careful. Ava had kept their interactions professional, and Liam had followed her lead, even though it felt like stepping backward. He told himself it was for the best, that whatever he'd been feeling was just a side effect of spending too much time together, that it would fade if he gave it enough space. But it hadn't faded. If anything, it had gotten worse. He'd started noticing things he'd tried to ignore before, the way his pulse quickened when Ava walked into a room, the way he found excuses to stop by her office even when he didn't need to, the way he looked forward to the late nights, not because of the work, but because it meant time alone with her. And the worst part? He was pretty sure she'd noticed too. But, which brought him back to tonight. Sitting across from Ava at a table in Giovanni's, watching her eat pappardelle and laugh at something he'd said, Liam realized he'd been lying to himself for months. He didn't just admire Ava. He didn't just respect her. He didn't just think she was smart and kind and deserving of better than what life had given her. He was falling for her. And judging by the way she was looking at him right now, like he'd just done something impossibly kind and impossibly reckless at the same time, he was pretty sure she felt it too. "Thank you," she said quietly, setting down her fork. "For this. For showing up. I don't think I've said that yet." "You don't have to thank me." "Yes, I do." She leaned forward, and her voice dropped. "You didn't have to do this, Liam. You could have driven away and pretended you didn't see me, but you didn't. That means something." "You're my boss," Liam said, trying to keep his tone light. "Can't have you thinking I'm heartless. You're not my employee right now." Ava's eyes were serious. "Right now, you're just a guy who saved me from the worst night I've had in a long time. And I'm grateful." Liam swallowed hard. For what it's worth, the guy who left is an idiot. "You said that earlier." "I meant it then too." Ava smiled, and it was the kind of smile that made Liam's chest ache. "You're dangerous, you know that? How do you figure? Because you make me want to believe that not everyone is going to leave." Liam didn't know what to say to that, so he didn't say anything. He just held her gaze, and for a moment the rest of the restaurant disappeared. Then Ava's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, and her expression shifted, something resigned and sad sliding into place. "That's my car service," she said. "I should go." "Right. Yeah." They stood, and Ava paid the bill while Liam tried not to think about how much the meal had cost. Outside, the rain had stopped, and the air smelled clean and cool. Ava's car was waiting at the curb, a sleek black sedan that probably cost more than Liam's annual salary. She turned to him, and in the glow of the streetlights, she looked younger again. Vulnerable. "Liam, you don't have to say anything," he said quickly. "It's fine. We'll go back to normal on Monday." "I don't want normal," Ava said, and the words came out in a rush like she'd been holding them back for too long. "I don't want to pretend tonight didn't happen. I don't want to go back to keeping you at a distance because it's easier or safer or whatever excuse I've been using." Liam's heart was pounding. "Ava, I know this is complicated," she said. "I know there are 100 reasons why this is a bad idea, but I don't care. I'm tired of being careful. I'm tired of being alone. And if I'm being honest, I've been thinking about you for months." Liam felt like the ground had just shifted under his feet. "You have?" "Yes." She stepped closer, and he could see the fear in her eyes, but also the hope. "So if you're going to tell me this is a mistake, do it now, because if you don't, I'm going to kiss you, and then we're not going to be able to take it back." Liam looked at her, this brilliant, guarded, impossibly brave woman who just put her heart on the line, and made a choice. "Then don't take it back," he said. Ava kissed him, and the world fell away. The kiss lasted maybe 10 seconds, but it felt like the kind of moment that split your life into before and after. When Ava pulled back, her eyes were wide, like she couldn't quite believe what she'd just done. Liam's heart was hammering so hard he thought she might hear it. "I should go," she said, but she didn't move. "Yeah," Liam said, "you should." Neither of them moved. The driver cleared his throat from the front seat of the sedan, and the sound broke whatever spell had been holding them in place. Ava stepped back, smoothing down her dress like she could smooth away what had just happened. "Monday," she said, and her voice wavered just slightly. "We'll figure this out on Monday." "Right, Monday." She got into the car, and Liam watched it pull away, the taillights disappearing around the corner. He stood there on the sidewalk for a long time, rain-soaked and buzzing with adrenaline, trying to process what had just happened. His boss had kissed him. No, he'd kissed her back. They'd kissed each other. And now he had to go home and pretend his entire world hadn't just tilted off its axis. He drove home in a daze, barely registering the roads or the stoplights. When he got to his apartment, the babysitter was asleep on the couch with the TV on low volume. He paid her, thanked her, and locked the door behind her. Then he stood in his living room staring at nothing until his daughter's voice floated out from her bedroom. "Daddy?" Liam shook himself and went to her room. She was sitting up in bed, clutching the stuffed penguin Ava had given her months ago. Her fever had broken days ago, but she still looked small and fragile in her pajamas. "Hey, Bug, you okay?" "I had a bad dream." "Want to talk about it?" She shook her head. "Can you sit with me?" "Yeah, of course." He sat on the edge of her bed, and she leaned against him, the penguin tucked under her chin. Liam wrapped an arm around her and felt the weight of the night pressing down on him. This was what mattered. This kid. This life he'd built for her. Everything else was noise. But the memory of Ava's kiss burned in his chest like a live wire, and he knew Monday was going to change everything. Monday came too fast and not fast enough. Liam spent the weekend in a fog, going through the motions of parenting while his mind replayed Friday night on a loop. He didn't hear from Ava, which made sense. She was probably doing the same thing he was, trying to figure out what the hell they were supposed to do now. When he walked into the office Monday morning, the place felt different. Or maybe he felt different. He couldn't tell anymore. He went straight to his desk, fired up his computer, and tried to focus on the campaign he was supposed to be working on. But every time the elevator dinged, his head snapped up, expecting to see Ava. She didn't show up until almost 10, which was late for her. When she walked past his desk, she didn't look at him. Just kept moving, her heels clicking against the tile, her expression unreadable. Liam felt something sink in his stomach. An hour later, his phone buzzed. A text from Ava. "My office. Now." He took the stairs instead of the elevator, buying himself an extra 30 seconds to get his head straight. When he knocked on her door, she called for him to come in without looking up from her computer. "Close the door," she said. Liam did, then stood there awkwardly, waiting for her to say something. She finished typing, saved whatever she was working on, and finally looked at him. Her face was calm, professional, completely locked down. "We need to talk about Friday," she said.
"Yeah, we do. I crossed a line. I shouldn't have kissed you. You work for me, and that puts you in a position where saying no would have been difficult, even if you wanted to. That was unfair, and I'm sorry." Liam blinked. "You think I didn't want to?" "I think the power dynamic makes it complicated. Ava, I wanted to kiss you. I've wanted to for months. You didn't force me into anything."
She looked at him for a long moment, and he could see her wrestling with something. "That doesn't make it less complicated." "I know. If we do this, if we even think about doing this, it's going to be a problem. People will talk. They'll say, 'I'm giving you preferential treatment.' They'll say you're sleeping your way up the ladder. It's going to be ugly." "I don't care what people say." "You should," Ava said, and there was an edge to her voice now. "Because I do. This company is everything to me, Liam. I built it from nothing. And if people think I'm compromising my integrity because I couldn't keep my personal life separate from work, it'll destroy everything I've worked for." Liam felt anger flare in his chest, hot and sharp. "So what? We just pretend Friday didn't happen? Go back to being boss and employee and nothing else?" "I don't know," Ava said, and for the first time since he'd walked in, he saw the cracks in her composure. "I don't have an answer. I just know that if we do this, we have to be smart about it. We have to set boundaries, and we have to accept that it might not work. And if it does work, then we deal with that when it happens." Liam wanted to argue. He wanted to tell her that playing it safe wasn't the same as living, that she deserved to take a risk on something that made her happy. But he also knew she was right. This wasn't just about them. It was about his daughter, his job, her company. There were no easy answers. "So what do you want to do?" he asked. Ava stood and walked to the window, looking out at the city below. "I want to try, but we do it my way. No one in the office knows. We keep work and personal completely separate. And if it starts affecting either of our jobs, we stop. That's a lot of rules." "That's the deal." Liam crossed the room and stood beside her. "You're scared." "Of course I'm scared," Ava said. "I don't do this, Liam. I don't let people in. And the last time I did, it ended badly. I'm not him." "I know, but that doesn't mean this won't end badly, too." Liam reached out and took her hand. She flinched, just slightly, but she didn't pull away. "Then let's make sure it doesn't." Ava looked down at their hands, then back up at him. "You're really okay with this? With all the secrecy and the complications? I've got a 6-year-old and a job I can't afford to lose. I'm used to complications." That got a small smile out of her. "All right, then let's try." "Your way?" "My way?" "Fine. But for the record, your way is exhausting." "Noted." They stood there for another moment, hands still linked, and Liam felt the weight of what they were about to do settle over him. It was reckless and risky, and probably a terrible idea. But looking at Ava, seeing the hope buried under all her fear, he couldn't bring himself to care. What? The next few weeks were a masterclass in compartmentalization. At work, Liam and Ava were nothing but professional. They didn't linger in each other's offices. They didn't exchange meaningful looks across the conference table. They barely spoke unless it was about a campaign or a client. But outside the office, things were different. They started meeting for dinner once a week, always at places far enough from the office that they wouldn't run into coworkers. Ava insisted on picking restaurants in neighborhoods neither of them frequented, and Liam went along with it, even though the secrecy felt ridiculous. But he understood why it mattered to her. She'd worked too hard to build her reputation to let gossip tear it down. Their conversations during those dinners were careful at first, like they were both testing the boundaries of what they could say. But gradually, the walls came down. Ava told him about growing up with parents who'd expected her to follow in their footsteps. Corporate law, a safe career, a predictable life. She'd disappointed them by starting her own company, and they still didn't understand why she'd chosen creativity over stability. Liam told her about his ex-wife, how she'd left when their daughter was 4, said she couldn't handle the responsibility of being a parent, how he'd spent the last 2 years trying to be enough for his kid while drowning in bills and exhaustion. "Do you ever regret it?" Ava asked one night. "Keeping her? Raising her alone?" "Never," Liam said. She's the best thing that ever happened to me, even on the hard days. You're a good father. I'm a tired father. There's a difference. Ava smiled. You're both. Those dinners became the highlight of Liam's week. He looked forward to them the way he used to look forward to weekends when he was a kid, counting down the days, marking time until he could see her again. And judging by the way Ava's face lit up when he walked into whatever restaurant she'd picked, she felt the same way. But the secrecy was harder than he'd expected. At work, he had to watch Ava interact with other people, laughing at their jokes, taking their advice, treating them the same way she treated him, and pretend it didn't bother him. He had to sit through meetings where she praised his work without showing any sign that she knew him as more than an employee. He had to act like Friday nights at hidden restaurants didn't exist. It was exhausting, and it was starting to wear on him. 2 months in, Liam's daughter asked him why he was always on his phone. They were eating breakfast, cereal for her, burnt toast for him, and she was swinging her legs under the table, watching him with the kind of sharp attention only kids seemed capable of. You're always texting someone, she said. Is it work? Sometimes, Liam said, which wasn't technically a lie. Ava did text him about work, but she also texted him about other things, stupid things, things that made him smile at his phone like an idiot. Do you have a girlfriend? Liam nearly choked on his coffee. What? No, why would you think that? Because you smile when you look at your phone, and you go out a lot now. I go out once a week. That's a lot for you. Liam set down his coffee and looked at his daughter, trying to figure out how much to say. She was 6. She didn't need to know the messy details of his personal life, but she was also smart, and lying to her felt wrong. I've been spending time with a friend, he said carefully. Someone from work. Is she nice? Very nice. Do I get to meet her? Liam hesitated. That was the question, wasn't it? At what point did this thing with Ava stop being a secret and start being real? At what point did he introduce her to the most important person in his life? Maybe someday, he said. But not yet. His daughter frowned. Why not? Because it's complicated. That's what grown-ups always say when they don't want to explain something. You're too smart for your own good. You know that? She grinned. I know. That night, Liam brought it up with Ava. They were at a Thai place in a neighborhood neither of them had been to before, and Ava was halfway through a plate of pad see ew when he said, My daughter asked if I have a girlfriend. Ava froze, her fork halfway to her mouth. What did you tell her? That I have a friend from work. And? And she wants to meet you. Ava set down her fork, and Liam watched her process the information. He could see the panic flicker across her face before she locked it down. Liam, I don't think that's a good idea. Why not? Because if I meet her, this becomes real. And if it becomes real, it becomes harder to walk away if things don't work out. You're already planning for it not to work out? I'm being realistic. Oh. Liam leaned back in his chair, frustration bubbling up. You know what? I'm tired of realistic. I'm tired of hiding. I'm tired of pretending this is just some casual thing we're doing when it's not. It has to be casual, Ava said, and her voice was tight now. Because if it's not, then we're risking everything. Your job, my company, both of our reputations. I don't care about my reputation. Well, I care about mine. The words landed like a slap, and Liam felt something crack inside him. Right, because your reputation is more important than this, than us. That's not fair. Isn't it? Liam stood, pulling out his wallet. You want to keep this a secret forever? Fine, but don't expect me to be okay with it. He threw cash on the table and walked out, leaving Ava sitting there alone. He didn't hear from her for 3 days. No texts, no calls, nothing. At work, she avoided him completely, and Liam told himself he didn't care, that he was done playing by her rules. But the truth was, he missed her. He missed the late-night texts and the dinners and the way she laughed when he said something ridiculous. He missed the version of her that wasn't his boss, the one who let her guard down and let him see the person underneath. On the 4th day, she knocked on his apartment door. Liam opened it, surprised, and found her standing there in jeans and a sweater, looking nothing like the polished CEO he was used to seeing. Can I come in? She asked. He stepped aside, and she walked past him into the living room. His daughter was at a friend's house for a play date, so the apartment was quiet. "I'm sorry," Ava said, turning to face him. "I was wrong. You were right. I've been so focused on protecting myself that I didn't stop to think about what I was asking you to give up." "Ava, let me finish." She took a breath. "I'm scared, Liam. I'm scared of letting you in and losing you. I'm scared of people judging me. I'm scared that if I let this be real, it'll fall apart, and I won't be able to put myself back together. But I'm more scared of losing you because I was too much of a coward to try." Liam felt the anger drain out of him, replaced by something softer. "You're not a coward. I feel like one." He crossed the room and took her hands. "Then stop hiding. Stop pretending this isn't what it is." "And what is it?" "Something worth fighting for." Ava looked up at him, and he saw tears in her eyes. "I want to meet her, your daughter. I want to be part of your life, not just the secret part." "You sure?" "No, but I'm doing it anyway." Liam pulled her into his arms, and she buried her face in his chest. He felt her shake, just slightly, and realized she was crying. "I don't know how to do this," she whispered. "Neither do I. But we'll figure it out." 2 weeks later, Liam brought Ava to his apartment for dinner. His daughter had been nervous all day, asking 100 questions about who this person was and why it mattered so much. Liam had kept his answers simple. Ava was important to him, and he wanted them to meet. When Ava arrived, she had a gift bag in one hand and a bottle of wine in the other. She looked calm, but Liam could see the tension in her shoulders. His daughter opened the door before Liam could, staring up at Ava with wide eyes. "Hi," Ava said, crouching down to her level. "You must be the famous one I've been hearing so much about." His daughter giggled. "I'm not famous." "Are you sure? Because your dad talks about you all the time. I was starting to think you might be a celebrity." "What's in the bag?" Ava handed it to her. "Just a little something. I wasn't sure what you liked, so I took a guess." Inside was a set of watercolor paints and a sketchbook. His daughter's face lit up. "I love painting." "I thought you might. Your dad mentioned you like art." Liam watched them, something warm and terrifying unfurling in his chest. His daughter was already pulling Ava toward the kitchen table, chattering about a painting she'd done at school, and Ava was listening like it was the most important thing she'd ever heard. Dinner was chaotic. His daughter spilled juice on the table, and Ava laughed instead of flinching. They talked about everything and nothing: school, favorite foods, the best kind of ice cream. Ava told stories about growing up with a dog that had eaten an entire birthday cake, and his daughter was riveted. After dinner, his daughter insisted on showing Ava her room, dragging her down the hall by the hand. Liam followed, leaning against the doorway as his daughter gave Ava a tour of her stuffed animals, her bookshelf, her collection of rocks from the park. "This one's my favorite," his daughter said, holding up the penguin Ava had sent months ago. "Daddy says it's from a friend." Ava glanced at Liam, and he saw the question in her eyes. He nodded. "I'm the friend," Ava said. "I gave that to your dad to give to you." "Really? Really? I thought you might like it." "I love it." His daughter hugged the penguin, then looked up at Ava. "Are you Daddy's girlfriend?" Ava froze, and Liam stepped into the room. "Bug, that's a grown-up question. But I want to know." Ava crouched down again, meeting his daughter's eyes. "I care about your dad a lot, and I think he's pretty great. Is that okay with you?" His daughter thought about it, then nodded. "Yeah, he's pretty great." Ava smiled, and Liam felt something settle in his chest, something that felt a lot like hope. After his daughter went to bed, Liam and Ava sat on the couch with the wine she'd brought. The apartment was quiet, and for the first time in weeks, Liam felt like he could breathe. "She likes you," he said. "I like her. She's amazing, Liam." "She is." Ava set down her glass and turned to face him. "I meant what I said earlier. I want to do this, for real. No more hiding." "What about work?" "We'll figure it out. We'll go to HR, set boundaries, make sure everything's above board. But I'm done pretending this doesn't matter." Liam reached for her hand. "You're sure?" "I'm terrified." "But yeah, I'm sure." He kissed her, slow and soft, and when he pulled back, she was smiling. "Your daughter's going to have a lot of questions," Ava said. "She already does. Are you ready for that?" No, but I'll deal with it. Ava laughed, and the sound filled the room. You know what? I think we're going to be okay. Yeah, Liam said, pulling her closer. I think we are. They sat there for a long time, wrapped up in each other, and for the first time since that night outside Giovanni's, Liam let himself believe that maybe, just maybe, this could work. The morning Liam and Ava walked into HR together, the air in the office felt different. It wasn't just nerves, though there were plenty of those. It was the weight of knowing that once they had this conversation, there was no taking it back. Everyone would know. The whispers would start. The judgments would come. Sandra Chen, the head of HR, looked up from her desk when they knocked, and Liam saw the exact moment she understood why they were there. Her expression shifted from polite curiosity to careful neutrality in the span of a heartbeat. Close the door, she said. They sat across from her, and Liam felt Ava's knee brush against his under the desk. He didn't move away. So, Sandra said, folding her hands on the desk, I'm guessing this isn't about a client issue. No, Ava said, and her voice was steady in a way that made Liam proud. Liam and I are in a relationship. We wanted to disclose it formally and discuss how to proceed in a way that's ethical and doesn't compromise the company. Sandra nodded slowly, like she'd been expecting this conversation for weeks. Maybe she had been. How long has this been going on? About 3 months, Liam said. And you're both certain this is serious? Not just a workplace fling that'll blow over? Ava stiffened. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't serious. Fair enough. Sandra pulled out a legal pad and started writing. Here's what we need to do. First, Liam, you'll report to someone else. Not Ava. We'll restructure so there's no direct line of authority between you two. Second, all performance reviews, raises, and promotions for Liam will go through a committee. Ava won't have unilateral say. Third, you both need to understand that if this relationship affects your work or creates a hostile environment for other employees, there will be consequences. Understood, Ava said. Sandra looked at Liam. You good with all this? Yeah, I am. All right, I'll draft a memo to the team. You'll want to get ahead of the gossip, so I'd suggest addressing it yourselves before the rumor mill starts. Ava nodded. We will. They left Sandra's office, and Liam felt like he'd just jumped out of a plane without checking if the parachute worked. The decision was made. There was no going back now. You okay? Ava asked quietly as they walked back toward their desks. Ask me in a week. She gave him a small smile, but he could see the worry in her eyes. She was scared. So was he. But they'd made a choice, and now they had to live with it. The memo went out that afternoon. It was professional, clinical, and gave away almost nothing. Ava Bennett and Liam Carter have disclosed a personal relationship. Appropriate measures have been taken to ensure no conflict of interest. Please direct any questions to HR. Liam's phone started buzzing before he'd even finished reading it. Texts from coworkers he barely spoke to. Emails from people asking if it was true. A few congratulations mixed in with a lot of curiosity and barely concealed judgment. He ignored most of it and focused on his work. But it was hard to concentrate when he could feel eyes on him every time he left his desk. People were talking. He knew they were. He just didn't know what they were saying yet. At lunch, one of the junior designers, a guy named Marcus, who Liam had always gotten along with, sat down across from him in the break room. So, Marcus said, unwrapping a sandwich. You and Ava, huh? Liam kept his expression neutral. Yep. That's wild, man. I mean, good for you. She's intense, but in a good way. She is. Marcus leaned forward, lowering his voice. People are going to talk. You know that, right? There's already a pool going about how long it lasts. Liam set down his fork. A pool? Yeah. Some people are giving it 3 months. Others think you'll be done by the end of the year. Marcus shrugged. I put money on a year. You seem solid. Thanks, I think. Just giving you a heads up. It's not personal. People are bored. Liam wanted to be annoyed, but he couldn't really blame them. If the situation had been reversed, if someone else had started dating the CEO, he probably would have been just as curious. That didn't make it any less exhausting. When Ava texted him later that afternoon asking how it was going, he replied honestly, "People are placing bets on how long we'll last." Her response came back almost immediately. "What are the odds?" "Not great," Liam typed, "but I've never been good at gambling anyway." Her next message was just a string of laughing emojis, and despite everything, Liam smiled. That night, after he'd picked up his daughter from school and made her dinner, he sat her down at the kitchen table. She was working on homework, a math worksheet that had her chewing on her pencil in concentration, and Liam waited until she finished a problem before saying, "Hey, Bug, can we talk for a minute?" She looked up, instantly suspicious. "Am I in trouble?" "No. But I need to tell you something." She set down her pencil, giving him her full attention. Liam took a breath. "You know how Ava came over for dinner the other day?" "Yeah, I liked her." "Good. I'm glad. Because she's going to be around more now. She's my girlfriend." His daughter's eyes went wide. "Really?" "Really. Does that mean she's going to live with us?" "Not yet, but maybe someday." "What if I don't like her someday?" Liam blinked. "Do you think you won't?"
I don't know. What if she's nice now, but then she gets mean? The question hit Liam harder than he expected. His daughter had been 4 when her mother left. She didn't remember much, but she remembered enough. She remembered being promised things that never came. She remembered waiting for someone who didn't show up. Liam reached across the table and took her small hand in his. "Ava's not going to get mean, and if you ever don't like something she does, you can tell me. I promise I'll listen." "But what if she leaves like Mommy did?" There it was, the fear he'd been carrying around for months, mirrored in his daughter's eyes. Liam swallowed hard. "I can't promise she won't," he said, because lying to her felt wrong. "But I can promise that I'll always be here, no matter what. You and me, we're a team. That's not changing." His daughter thought about that, her face serious. Then she nodded. "Okay. But if she's mean to you, I'm going to tell her to leave." Liam laughed, the tension breaking. "Deal." She went back to her homework, and Liam sat there watching her, wondering if he was doing the right thing. Bringing someone new into their lives was a risk, but so was staying closed off forever. At some point, you had to decide whether you were going to let fear run your life or take a chance on something better. He pulled out his phone and texted Ava. "My daughter says if you're mean to me, she's kicking you out." Ava's response came a minute later. "Good. I'd expect nothing less." Over the next few weeks, the office gossip ebbed and flowed like a tide. Some days it felt like everyone was watching them. Other days, it seemed like people had moved on to newer, more interesting drama. Liam tried not to pay attention to it, but it was hard when people kept making little comments, snide remarks in meetings, jokes that weren't really jokes, pointed looks when he and Ava happened to be in the same room. The worst part was that Ava bore the brunt of it. People whispered that she was unprofessional, that she'd let her personal life cloud her judgment, that she'd promoted Liam because they were sleeping together, even though he hadn't gotten a promotion and his work spoke for itself. Liam heard 2 people talking about it in the break room one afternoon, their voices low but not low enough. "I'm just saying it looks bad," one of them said. "She's the CEO. She should know better." "Maybe she's having a midlife crisis," the other one replied. "Dating an employee? That's desperate." Liam walked in, and they both went silent. He poured himself a coffee, taking his time, then turned to face them. "If you've got something to say it to my face." The first one, a woman named Rachel, who worked in accounts, had the decency to look embarrassed. "We weren't talking about you." "Yes, you were. And for the record, Ava didn't date me because she's desperate. She dated me because I'm a good person, and she saw that. If you've got a problem with that, take it to HR. But don't stand around talking shit behind our backs." He walked out before they could respond, his hands shaking from the adrenaline. He hated confrontation, hated being the center of attention, but he wasn't going to stand there and let people trash Ava like she'd done something wrong. When he told her about it later, she looked more resigned than surprised. "That's not the first time I've heard something like that," she said. They were at her apartment, sitting on her couch with takeout containers spread across the coffee table. "Someone left an anonymous note on my desk last week. Said I was setting a bad example for the women in the company." Liam felt anger spike in his chest. "Who?" "I don't know. That's what anonymous means." "That's bullshit, Ava. You didn't do anything wrong." "Didn't I?" She set down her fork, her expression tired. "I'm the CEO. I'm supposed to set the standard, and the standard is that you don't date your employees. I'm not your employee anymore. Sandra restructured everything." "That's a technicality." "It's not a technicality. It's the right way to do things, and you did it.
People are just looking for something to be mad about. Ava sighed, leaning back against the couch. I knew this would be hard. I just didn't realize how hard. Liam moved closer, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. You want to stop? No. Do you? No. Then I guess we're stuck with each other. Could be worse. She smiled, resting her head against his shoulder. Yeah, could be worse. They sat like that for a while, the TV playing some forgettable show in the background, and Liam felt the tension slowly drain out of her. She was carrying so much, the weight of the company, the judgment of her employees, the fear that this whole thing was going to blow up in her face. He wished he could take some of that burden off her shoulders, but all he could do was stay. So that's what he did. The breaking point came a month later during a company meeting. It was one of those quarterly updates where Ava stood in front of everyone and talked about goals, revenue, upcoming projects. Liam usually tuned out during these meetings. He'd hear the important parts later, but this time he paid attention. Ava was in the middle of discussing a new client when someone in the back raised their hand. Yes? Ava said, pausing. It was Greg, one of the senior account managers, a guy in his 40s who'd been with the company since the beginning. I have a question about leadership. Ava's expression didn't change, but Liam saw her shoulders tense. Go ahead. There's been some concern among the team about conflicts of interest, specifically regarding your relationship with Liam Carter. Some people feel like it's affecting decision-making. The room went silent. Liam felt every pair of eyes shift toward him, and he kept his face blank, even though his pulse was pounding. Ava's voice, when she spoke, was ice cold. What decision, specifically, are you referring to? The Morrison campaign. Liam was lead designer, and it was a high-profile project. Some people think he got it because of favoritism. Liam got that project because his portfolio was the strongest fit for the client's vision, Ava said. The decision was made by a committee that I wasn't part of. If you have concerns about favoritism, I suggest you take them to HR, where they can be reviewed formally. But I will not entertain baseless accusations in a company-wide meeting. Greg opened his mouth to respond, but Ava cut him off. Furthermore, my personal life is not up for debate. Liam and I disclosed our relationship, followed protocol, and ensured that there are safeguards in place to prevent any conflict of interest. If anyone else has concerns, you're welcome to address them through the proper channels. But this meeting is about company performance, not gossip. Are we clear? No one said anything. Greg sat down, his face red, and Ava continued the presentation like nothing had happened. Afterward, Liam found her in her office. She was standing by the window, staring out at the city, her arms crossed over her chest. You okay? He asked. No. He walked over and stood beside her. You handled that well. Did I? Because it felt like I just painted a target on both our backs. Greg's an asshole. Everyone knows it. That doesn't mean he's wrong. People are questioning my leadership because of us. People question your leadership because they're insecure and you're successful. This is just an excuse. Ava turned to look at him, and her eyes were red-rimmed. What if this ruins everything I've built? It won't. You don't know that. You're right, I don't. But I know you're strong enough to handle it, and I know you're not going to let a few assholes with opinions take you down. She laughed, but it sounded shaky. You have a lot of faith in me. Yeah, well, you earned it. She reached for his hand, squeezing it tightly. I don't know what I'd do without you. Good thing you don't have to find out. They stood there for a while, and Liam wished he could fix this for her. But he couldn't. All he could do was stand beside her and remind her that she wasn't alone. That weekend, Ava came over to Liam's apartment for dinner. It had become a routine. Every Saturday, she'd show up with groceries, and the three of them would cook together. Well, Liam and Ava cooked. His daughter mostly taste-tested and offered unsolicited opinions. Tonight, they were making tacos, and his daughter was in charge of shredding cheese. She took the job very seriously, her tongue poking out in concentration as she worked. Can I ask you something? His daughter said, looking up at Ava. Sure. Do you love my dad? Liam froze, his knife halfway through a tomato. Ava blinked, clearly caught off guard. That's a big question, Ava said carefully. I know, but I want to know. Ava glanced at Liam, and he gave her a small nod. Whatever she said, he'd back her up. Yeah, Ava said. I do. His daughter nodded, satisfied. Good, because he loves you too. Liam nearly dropped the knife.
Bug.
What you do? You said so on the phone last week. Ava turned to him, her eyebrows raised. Did you now? Liam felt his face heat. I was talking to my sister, and you were eavesdropping, he added, pointing at his daughter. I wasn't eavesdropping. You were loud. Ava laughed, and the sound filled the kitchen, bright and genuine. I like her. She's honest. Brutally, Liam muttered. After dinner, they put on a movie, and his daughter fell asleep halfway through, curled up between them on the couch. Liam carried her to bed, tucking her in and kissing her forehead. When he came back, Ava was still on the couch, looking at him with an expression he couldn't quite read. What? He asked. She's right, you know. You are loud on the phone. Liam groaned, sitting down beside her. Can we not talk about this? Why not? Because it's embarrassing. It's not embarrassing. It's sweet. It's definitely embarrassing. Ava shifted closer, her hand finding his. For the record, I meant what I said. I do love you. Liam looked at her, and the world seemed to narrow down to just the two of them. Yeah? Yeah? I love you too, he said, and the words felt easier than he'd expected. Like they'd been sitting on the edge of his tongue for weeks, just waiting for the right moment. Ava kissed him, slow and soft, and when she pulled back, she was smiling. So what now? Now we keep going, one day at a time. Think we can do that? I think we can do anything. She laughed, resting her head on his shoulder, and Liam wrapped his arm around her. Outside, the city hummed with life, but inside his apartment, everything was quiet, peaceful, right. For the first time in a long time, Liam let himself believe that maybe they really could make this work. The following Monday, Liam walked into the office and found a bouquet of flowers on his desk. There was no card, but he didn't need one. He knew who they were from. He texted Ava. Flowers? Really? Her response came a minute later. You said you loved me. I'm celebrating. You're ridiculous, and you're stuck with me. Liam smiled, tucking his phone back into his pocket. People were still watching. The whispers hadn't stopped. But for the first time since this whole thing started, Liam didn't care. Let them talk. Let them judge. He had something real, something worth fighting for, and he wasn't about to let anyone take it away. That night, as he was putting his daughter to bed, she looked up at him with sleepy eyes and said, Daddy? Yeah, Bug. I'm glad Ava loves you. Liam's throat tightened. Me too. Do you think she'll stay? It was the same question she'd asked weeks ago, and Liam still didn't have a perfect answer, but he had a better one now. I think she will, he said, because she loves us. And people who love you don't leave. His daughter smiled, her eyes already drifting closed. Good. Liam kissed her forehead and turned off the light, standing in the doorway for a moment, watching her sleep. He thought about everything that had led him here, the job he'd almost not gotten, the night he'd walked into that restaurant, the decision to let Ava in despite all the reasons he shouldn't have. It hadn't been easy. It still wasn't. But looking at his daughter, thinking about Ava, Liam knew it had been worth it. He pulled out his phone and sent one more text. Thank you. Ava replied almost immediately. For what? For not giving up on us. Her response was a single red heart, and Liam smiled, pocketing his phone and heading to the kitchen to clean up. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new judgments, new obstacles to navigate. But tonight, he had everything he needed, and that was enough. The first crack in their careful equilibrium came 6 months in, on a Thursday morning that started like any other. Liam was dropping his daughter off at school when his phone rang. It was Ava, and she sounded wrecked. Can you come to the office early? She asked. What's wrong? Just come, please. He made it there in 20 minutes, his mind racing through every possible disaster. When he walked into her office, she was sitting at her desk with her head in her hands, and there was a printed email in front of her. What happened? Liam asked, closing the door. Ava looked up, and her eyes were red. Greg filed a formal complaint. He's alleging that I've been giving you preferential treatment and that the company culture has become hostile because of our relationship. Liam felt his stomach drop. That's insane. He has statements from 3 other employees backing him up. They're saying morale is down, that people don't feel comfortable speaking up because they're afraid I'll retaliate if they say anything negative about you. She laughed, but it was bitter. Apparently I'm abusing my power. That's not true.
None of that's true.
It doesn't matter if it's true. It matters if people believe it. She pushed the email toward him. HR wants to do a full investigation. They're interviewing everyone on the team. If they find evidence of misconduct, I could be removed as CEO. Liam sank into the chair across from her. They can't do that.
They can. I have a board of directors, and if the board thinks I'm a liability, they'll push me out. She rubbed her face, exhausted. I built this company from nothing, Liam. It's everything I have. And now it might all fall apart because I fell in love. The words hung in the air between them, heavy and sharp. Liam wanted to tell her it would be okay, that they'd fight this and win, but he didn't know if that was true. What do you need from me? He asked. I need you to stay out of it. Don't talk to anyone about the investigation. Don't defend me in meetings. Just keep your head down and let HR do their job. Ava, I mean it, Liam. If you try to fight this, it'll only make things worse. They'll say I'm manipulating you, that you're too close to see the truth. So what? I just sit here and do nothing while they try to destroy you? Yes, her voice cracked. Because if you don't, we both lose. Liam wanted to argue, but the look in her eyes stopped him. She was terrified, and she was right. Anything he did to defend her would only feed the narrative that they were too entangled, that their relationship had compromised the company. All right, he said quietly. I'll stay out of it. Thank you. He left her office feeling like he'd just abandoned her in the middle of a war zone. But what else could he do? She'd asked him to stay back, and he had to trust that she knew how to handle this better than he did. The investigation took 3 weeks, and they were the longest weeks of Liam's life. HR interviewed everyone on the team, combing through emails, performance reviews, project assignments. They asked Liam questions about his relationship with Ava, how it started, whether she'd ever promised him promotions or special treatment, whether he felt pressured to stay in the relationship because she was in a position of power. He answered honestly, even when the questions felt invasive. No, she'd never promised him anything. No, he didn't feel pressured. Yes, he understood that their relationship complicated things, but they'd done everything by the book. At the office, people avoided him, some out of awkwardness, others out of suspicion. The few who did talk to him did so in hushed tones, like they were afraid of being overheard. Liam felt like a pariah, and he hated it. Ava was worse. She threw herself into work, staying late every night, barely eating, barely sleeping. When Liam tried to check on her, she brushed him off. She was in survival mode, and that meant shutting everyone out, even him. One night, Liam showed up at her apartment unannounced. She opened the door in sweatpants and an old t-shirt, looking like she hadn't slept in days. You can't be here, she said. Too bad. I'm here. He pushed past her into the apartment. When's the last time you ate? I don't know. This morning, maybe. It's 9 at night. I've been busy. Liam went to her kitchen and started rummaging through the fridge. There wasn't much, some leftover takeout, a carton of eggs, half a loaf of bread. He pulled out the eggs and started cooking. What are you doing? Ava asked, leaning against the doorway. Making you dinner. I'm not hungry. You're eating anyway. She didn't argue, just watched him cook in silence. When the eggs were done, he put them on a plate and handed it to her. She sat at the counter and picked at the food, not really eating, just moving it around. They're going to find something, she said quietly. Some email I sent that could be interpreted the wrong way. Some decision I made that looks bad in hindsight, and they're going to use it to force me out. You don't know that. Yes, I do, because that's how these things work. It doesn't matter if I actually did anything wrong. It matters if people think I did. Liam sat down beside her. Then we'll deal with it. Whatever happens, we'll deal with it. What if I lose the company? Then you start over. It's not that simple. I know it's not. But you're acting like losing the company means losing everything. And that's not true. You still have me. You still have your talent, your reputation, your ability to build something new. The company doesn't define you, Ava. She looked at him, and for the first time in weeks, he saw something other than fear in her eyes. You really believe that? Yeah, I do. She set down her fork and leaned into him, and Liam wrapped his arms around her. She felt small and fragile, and he hated that this was happening to her. Hated that people who didn't know her, who didn't see how hard she worked or how much she cared, were trying to tear her down. I love you, she whispered. I love you too.
They sat like that for a long time, and Liam wished he could take away her fear, but all he could do was hold her and remind her that she wasn't alone. The results of the investigation came back 2 days later. Liam was in a meeting when his phone buzzed with a text from Ava. "My office, now." He excused himself and took the stairs 2 at a time. When he walked in, Ava was standing by the window, holding a piece of paper. Her face was unreadable. "What did they say?" Liam asked. She handed him the paper. It was a summary of the investigation's findings. Liam scanned it quickly, his heart pounding. No evidence of preferential treatment. No evidence of misconduct. All decisions regarding Liam Carter's assignments and performance were made in accordance with company policy. However, the investigation did find that some employees felt uncomfortable with the relationship and recommend additional training on workplace relationships and power dynamics. Liam looked up. "They cleared you." "They cleared us," Ava corrected. "But it's not over. The board still wants to meet. They want to discuss whether my relationship with you is in the best interest of the company." "What does that mean?" "It means they're going to ask me to choose the company or you." Liam felt like he'd been punched in the gut. "They can't do that." "They can, and they will." She turned to face him, and her expression was hard. "I've been thinking about this a lot. About what's fair and what's not. About what I'm willing to sacrifice." "Ava, let me finish." She took a breath. "I love you. I love what we have. But I also love this company. I built it. It's mine, and I don't know if I can walk away from it." Liam felt something cold settle in his chest. "Are you saying you want to end this?" "I'm saying I don't know what I want, and I hate that I don't know." "So what? I'm just supposed to wait around while you decide if I'm worth it?" "That's not fair. None of this is fair." Liam's voice rose, and he didn't care. "You asked me to trust you, to let HR do their job, to stay quiet while people dragged your name through the mud. I did all of that. And now you're telling me you might choose the company over me?" "I'm not saying that." "Then what are you saying?" Ava's eyes filled with tears. "I'm saying I'm scared, Liam. I'm scared of losing everything, and I don't know how to fix this." Liam stared at her, anger and hurt warring in his chest. He wanted to yell, to tell her she was being a coward. But he also understood. He understood the weight she was carrying, the impossible choice she was facing. That didn't make it hurt any less. "You know what?" he said quietly. "You're right. You do have to choose. And I hope you pick the one that makes you happy." He walked out before she could respond. That night, Liam sat on his couch with a beer he didn't want, staring at the TV without seeing it. His daughter was asleep, and the apartment was too quiet. He kept replaying the conversation with Ava, trying to figure out where it had gone wrong, trying to figure out if there was anything he could have said that would have changed the outcome. His phone buzzed, a text from Ava. "I'm sorry." He didn't respond. Another text. "Can we talk?" He turned off his phone and finished his beer. Then he got another one. The next morning, Liam called in sick. He couldn't face the office, couldn't face the possibility of running into Ava and pretending everything was fine. He dropped his daughter off at school, then went home and sat on the couch, trying to figure out what the hell he was supposed to do now. His sister called around noon. She lived 2 states away and only called when she sensed something was wrong. It was like a superpower. "What happened?" she asked. "What makes you think something happened?" "Because you never call in sick, and you sound like garbage." Liam sighed. "Ava and I don't know what we are." "Did you break up?" "I don't think so, but it's heading that way." His sister was quiet for a moment. "Tell me what happened." So he did. He told her about the investigation, the board meeting, the impossible choice Ava was facing. When he finished, his sister let out a low whistle. "That's rough." "Yeah." "Do you love her?" "Of course I do." "Then why are you sitting at home feeling sorry for yourself?" Liam frowned. "What am I supposed to do? She has to make a choice. I can't make it for her." "No, but you can remind her what she's choosing between. You walked out yesterday without giving her a chance to explain. Maybe she needs to hear that you're not going anywhere, that you're in this no matter what." "She told me she might choose the company over me." "She told you she was scared. There's a difference." Liam rubbed his face, exhausted. "I don't know if I can do this. The back and forth, the uncertainty. I have a kid to think about. I can't keep putting her through this if it's just going to fall apart." Then don't let it fall apart. Fight for it. I don't know how. Yes, you do. You show up. You tell Ava that you love her and that you're not giving up, and then you let her decide. Liam sat with that for a long time after they hung up. His sister was right. He'd walked out because he was hurt, because he was scared. But walking out wasn't the same as fighting. And if this thing with Ava was worth anything, it was worth fighting for. He picked up his phone and texted her. Can I come over tonight? Her response came almost immediately. Yes. That evening, Liam stood outside Ava's apartment, trying to figure out what he was going to say. He didn't have a speech prepared. He just had the truth, messy and imperfect as it was. When she opened the door, she looked as wrecked as he felt. Her hair was pulled back in a messy bun, and she was wearing the same sweatpants from the other night. Hi, she said. Hi. They stood there for a moment, and then Ava stepped aside to let him in. She closed the door and turned to face him, her arms wrapped around herself like she was trying to hold herself together. I'm sorry, she said, for yesterday, for making you feel like you weren't enough. I'm sorry, too, for walking out. You had every right to. Maybe, but it didn't help anything. Ava nodded, and they stood in the quiet of her apartment, the weight of everything unsaid pressing down on them. The board meeting is tomorrow, Ava said finally. They're going to ask me to step down if I don't end the relationship. And what are you going to tell them? I don't know. Liam took a breath. I love you, Ava. I love you more than I thought I could love anyone. And I know this is hard. I know you're scared, but I need you to know that I'm not going anywhere. Whatever you decide, I'm here. But I also need to know that you're willing to fight for this, because I can't be the only one fighting. Ava's eyes filled with tears. I'm so tired of fighting. I know, but that's what love is. It's showing up even when it's hard. It's choosing each other even when the world is telling you not to. What if I choose wrong? There's no wrong choice. There's just the choice you can live with. Ava wiped at her eyes, and when she spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. I don't want to lose you. Then don't. She crossed the room and wrapped her arms around him, and Liam held her tight. He didn't know what tomorrow would bring. He didn't know if the board would force her out or if she'd walk away on her own. But right now, in this moment, they had each other, and that had to be enough. The next day, Ava walked into the board meeting with her head held high. Liam didn't hear from her for hours, and every minute that passed felt like an eternity. He tried to focus on work, but it was impossible. His mind kept drifting to that conference room, to the conversation happening without him. Finally, around 3 in the afternoon, his phone buzzed. A text from Ava. It's done. Liam's heart stopped. He called her, and she picked up on the first ring. What happened? He asked. I told them I wasn't stepping down. I told them that my personal life is my own, and as long as I'm doing my job and following company policy, they have no right to interfere. And they didn't like it, but they also didn't have grounds to remove me. So we're at a stalemate. Liam let out a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. So you're staying, for now. But it's not over, Liam. This is going to follow me. Every decision I make, people are going to question it. Every mistake I make, they're going to blame it on us. We'll deal with it. You keep saying that. Because it's true. There was a long pause, and then Ava said, I choose you. I choose us. I just needed you to know that. Liam felt something break open in his chest, relief and love and gratitude all tangled together. I know, and I choose you too. Even with all the mess? Especially with the mess. She laughed, and it sounded lighter than it had in weeks. You're crazy. Maybe, but you love me anyway. Yeah, I do. That weekend, Liam took his daughter and Ava to the park. It was a clear, sunny day, and the three of them spent the afternoon throwing a frisbee, eating ice cream, and pretending the rest of the world didn't exist. His daughter ran ahead, chasing after the frisbee, and Liam and Ava walked hand in hand behind her. She's happy, Ava said, watching her. She is. So am I. Ava squeezed his hand. Do you ever think about the future? About what this looks like a year from now, or 5 years from now? All the time. And what do you see? Liam looked at her, at the woman who'd fought for him even when it would have been easier to walk away. I see us. I see my daughter growing up with someone who loves her.
I see you and me figuring things out as we go. It's not perfect, but it's real. I like real. Good, because that's all I've got to offer. Ava smiled, and they kept walking, their daughter's laughter ringing out ahead of them. The world was still complicated. The office was still a minefield. But in that moment, none of it mattered, because they'd made a choice, and they were going to see it through. Later that night, after his daughter was asleep, Liam and Ava sat on the couch, her head resting on his shoulder. The TV was on, playing something neither of them was watching, and the apartment was quiet. "I've been thinking," Ava said. About? About what comes next. For us. Liam shifted so he could see her face. "What do you mean?" "I mean, we've been doing this for almost a year now, and I don't want to keep living in limbo. I don't want to keep worrying about what people think or whether we're doing things the right way. I just want to be with you. You are with me. I know, but I want more than this. I want to wake up next to you every morning. I want to be part of your life, not just the person you see on weekends. I want us to be a family." Liam's heart stuttered. "Are you saying what I think you're saying?" "I'm saying I want to move in together. Or maybe you move in with me. I don't care where. I just want us to stop living separate lives." Liam stared at her, his mind racing. It was a big step, a huge step. But looking at Ava, seeing the hope and the vulnerability in her eyes, he realized it was the step he'd been waiting for. "Yeah," he said. "Let's do it." "Really?" "Really, but my daughter gets to keep her room, non-negotiable." Ava laughed, and it was the most beautiful sound Liam had ever heard. "Deal." They kissed, and Liam felt the pieces of his life click into place. It wasn't perfect, it wasn't easy, but it was theirs, and that made it worth everything. Moving in together turned out to be less romantic and more logistical nightmare than either of them had anticipated. Ava's apartment was bigger, so that's where they landed, but it meant packing up Liam's entire life, his daughter's toys, his furniture, years of accumulated stuff, and trying to fit it into a space that had been designed for one person who worked too much and didn't own a lot of things. His daughter handled it better than Liam expected. She was excited about the new place, especially the second bedroom that Ava had already started decorating with her input. They'd spent an entire Saturday picking out paint colors and bedding, and watching them together. Ava crouched down to his daughter's eye level, listening seriously to her opinions about whether the walls should be lavender or mint green, made Liam's chest ache in the best possible way. The first night in the new place was chaos. Boxes everywhere, half-assembled furniture, his daughter running through the halls like she'd been given her own personal racetrack. They ordered pizza because neither of them had the energy to cook, and they ate it sitting on the floor of the living room because the kitchen table was buried under unpacked kitchenware. "This is insane," Ava said, looking around at the disaster zone that was now their home. "Yeah," Liam agreed, "but it's our insane." She smiled at that, and his daughter, mouthful of pizza, said, "Can we get a dog?" "Absolutely not," Liam and Ava said in unison, and then looked at each other and laughed. It took 3 weeks to get the apartment into something resembling order, and even then, there were still boxes in the closet that neither of them wanted to deal with. But slowly, the space started to feel like theirs. Ava's coffee mug sat next to Liam's in the cabinet. His daughter's drawings went up on the fridge. Their routines merged and shifted until it felt natural. Ava making breakfast while Liam got his daughter ready for school, the three of them eating dinner together most nights, homework at the kitchen table while Liam and Ava took turns helping. At work, things had settled into a tense but manageable equilibrium. The gossip had died down, mostly because people had moved on to newer drama. Greg had left the company 2 months after the investigation. Whether he'd quit or been pushed out, Liam never found out, and his absence made the office feel lighter. Ava was still hyper-vigilant about maintaining boundaries, but she'd relaxed enough that she didn't flinch every time Liam walked past her office. But there were still hard days. Days when someone made a snide comment that Ava pretended not to hear. Days when Liam felt the weight of being the CEO's boyfriend more than he felt like himself. Days when they both came home exhausted and frustrated and had to remind each other why they were doing this in the first place. One of those hard days came about 4 months after they'd moved in together. Liam had been passed over for a promotion, a senior designer position that he'd been working toward for over a year. The guy who got it was less experienced, less talented, and had been with the company half as long.
When Liam asked Sandra in HR why he hadn't been considered, she'd given him a sympathetic look and said, "It was a committee decision. Sometimes these things just don't work out." But Liam knew what it really was. They'd passed him over because promoting him would look like favoritism, even though Ava hadn't been part of the decision, even though he'd earned it. He didn't tell Ava right away. He came home, helped his daughter with her homework, made dinner, went through all the motions of a normal evening, but Ava knew him well enough by now to see through it. "What's wrong?" she asked after his daughter had gone to bed. "Nothing." "Liam," he sighed, leaning back against the couch. "I didn't get the promotion." Ava's face fell. "What? Why not?" "You tell me. I wasn't part of that decision. You know that." "I know, but that doesn't change the fact that I got passed over because I'm with you." Ava was quiet for a long moment. "I'm sorry. It's not your fault." "It feels like it is." Liam ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. "I worked my ass off for that position. I earned it. And it doesn't matter because people are so busy worrying about optics that they can't see past the fact that we're together." "Do you regret it?" Ava asked quietly. "Being with me?" "No, but I'd be lying if I said this doesn't suck." "I know it does, and I hate that this is happening to you because of me. It's not because of you. It's because people are small-minded and scared." Liam shook his head. "I just don't know how much longer I can do this. Working at a place where I'm always going to be seen as your boyfriend first and a designer second." Ava looked stricken. "Are you saying you want to leave?" "I'm saying I need to figure out what's best for me and my daughter, and right now I don't know what that is." They sat in heavy silence, and Liam felt the weight of what he'd just said settle between them. He wasn't threatening to leave her. He wasn't, but he also couldn't ignore the fact that staying at Bennett Creative was costing him in ways he hadn't anticipated. Over the next few weeks, Liam started quietly looking at other opportunities. He didn't tell Ava at first, partly because he didn't want to worry her, and partly because he wasn't sure what he was going to do. But the more he looked, the more he realized that leaving might be the only way to reclaim his career. He finally told her one night over dinner. His daughter was at a sleepover, so it was just the two of them, a rare quiet evening. "I've been looking at other jobs," Liam said, setting down his fork. Ava looked up, surprised. "You have?" "Yeah, I got an offer yesterday. A design studio across town. It's a good position, better pay, and it's completely separate from you and the company." "Are you going to take it?" "I don't know. I wanted to talk to you first." Ava was quiet for a moment, processing. "If you take it, does that mean we're okay? That us being together won't keep holding you back?" "I think so, yeah." "Then you should take it." Liam blinked. "Just like that?" "Just like that." "Liam, I don't want you staying at Bennett Creative out of some misguided loyalty to me. You deserve to work somewhere that values you for your talent, not somewhere that sees you as a complication." She reached across the table and took his hand. "I want you to be happy, even if that means leaving." "You're sure?" "I'm sure." Liam felt something loosen in his chest, relief mixed with gratitude. "Thank you." "For what?" "For not making this harder than it already is." Ava smiled, but there was sadness in it. "I'm going to miss having you at the office." "Yeah, well, you'll still have me everywhere else." "I better." 2 weeks later, Liam gave his notice. The reaction at Bennett Creative was mixed. Some people seemed relieved, others genuinely sad to see him go. Ava kept things professional, shaking his hand in front of the team and thanking him for his contributions to the company. But that night, when they were alone, she cried into his shoulder and told him she was proud of him. "You're doing the right thing," she said. "I know. It just feels weird." Change always does. Starting at the new studio was like stepping into a parallel universe where people judged him on his work and nothing else. His boss was a woman in her 50s who'd built the studio from the ground up and had exactly zero interest in his personal life. His coworkers were talented and driven, and within a month, Liam felt like he could breathe again. He threw himself into the work, and the projects started coming. Big campaigns, creative challenges, opportunities to push himself in ways he hadn't been able to at Bennett Creative. And the best part? When he came home and told Ava about his day, she was genuinely excited for him. There was no tension, no worry that his success somehow reflected on her. It was just two people who loved each other, celebrating each other's wins. But leaving Bennett Creative didn't solve everything.
The reality of blending their lives and their families was harder than either of them had expected. Ava had never been a parent, and while she loved Liam's daughter, there were moments when the responsibility of it overwhelmed her. Moments when his daughter had a meltdown, and Ava didn't know how to help. When bedtime routines felt like battles, neither of them were winning. When Liam looked at Ava and saw the exhaustion in her eyes, and wondered if she regretted signing up for this. One particularly rough night, his daughter refused to go to bed, screaming that she missed her old apartment and didn't want to live here anymore. Liam tried everything, talking to her, bribing her, finally just sitting on the floor outside her room while she cried herself out. Ava hovered in the hallway, looking lost. "I don't know how to help," she said quietly. "You can't. She just needs to get it out. This is my fault. She's upset because I made you move."
Ava, stop. She's 7. She gets upset about everything. This isn't about you. But Ava didn't look convinced, and later, after his daughter had finally fallen asleep, she said, "Maybe I'm not cut out for this." Liam turned to her. "Cut out for what?" "This. Being a parent. Being part of a family." "I don't know what I'm doing, Liam." "Neither do I. I'm making it up as I go." "But you're her dad. You're supposed to know." "I'm supposed to, but I don't. Half the time I feel like I'm failing her. The other half, I'm too tired to care if I'm failing or not." That's parenting. It's messy and hard, and there's no manual. Ava sat down on the edge of the bed, her shoulders slumped. "I just want to be good at this." "You are good at this. You show up. You try. That's all anyone can do." "Is it enough?" "For her? Yeah. For me? Absolutely." Ava looked at him, and he saw the vulnerability in her eyes, the fear that she wasn't measuring up. Liam crossed the room and pulled her into his arms. "You're not perfect," he said. "Neither am I. Neither is she. But we're figuring it out together, and that's what matters." "You really believe that?" "I really do." They stood there for a long time, holding each other, and Liam felt the tension slowly drain out of her. This was the reality of what they'd chosen. Not the romance or the grand gestures, but the quiet, unglamorous work of building a life together. And it was harder than he'd expected, but it was also worth it. The turning point came about a year and a half after that night outside Giovanni's. Liam's daughter had just turned 8, and Ava had planned a birthday party at their apartment. Friends from school, decorations, a cake she'd insisted on baking herself, even though neither of them were particularly good at baking. The cake turned out lopsided and slightly burnt on one side, but his daughter loved it anyway. Watching Ava light the candles, watching his daughter's face glow with happiness, Liam felt something shift inside him. This was his family. Not the one he'd planned for or expected, but the one he'd chosen. And it was real. Later that night, after the guests had left and his daughter was asleep, Liam and Ava cleaned up the apartment together. They worked in comfortable silence, throwing away paper plates and wiping down counters. And when they were done, Ava turned to him and said, "I have something to tell you." Liam's stomach dropped. "That sounds ominous." "It's not. At least, I don't think it is." She took a breath. "I've been thinking about the company, about what I want the next chapter of my life to look like, and I've decided to step down as CEO. Liam stared at her. "What? Not immediately, but within the next year. I'm going to transition to a creative director role and bring in someone else to run the business side. I love the work, but I don't love the politics. And I don't want to spend the rest of my life fighting battles that don't matter." "Ava, are you sure? That company is everything to you." "It was everything to me, but it's not anymore. You are." "She is." Ava gestured toward his daughter's room. "I want to have a life outside of work. I want to come home and not be exhausted. I want to be present. And I can't do that if I'm running the company." Liam felt a lump form in his throat. "You're really doing this." "I'm really doing this." "And you're okay with it?" "I'm more than okay. I'm excited." Liam pulled her into his arms, and she laughed, the sound light and free. "I'm proud of you," he said. "For what?" "For choosing yourself, for choosing us. It wasn't that hard of a choice. Turns out, you're pretty great. I've been telling you that for months." "Yeah, well, I'm a slow learner." They stood there in the quiet of the apartment, and Liam felt the future unfold in front of them. Not perfect, not easy, but theirs. And that was enough. 6 months later, Liam proposed. It wasn't a grand gesture, no fancy restaurant, no elaborate plan, Just the two of them on the couch one night after his daughter had gone to bed. He didn't have a ring yet. He'd been planning to pick one out with her, but he couldn't wait anymore. "Marry me," he said. Ava looked up from her laptop, surprised. "What? Marry me? I know it's not romantic and I don't have a ring, but I don't want to wait. I want to marry you. I want to build a life with you. I want all of it." Ava's eyes filled with tears. "Are you serious?" "Completely. You're supposed to get down on one knee." "You want me to get down on one knee?" "No, I want you to stay right there." She closed her laptop and set it aside. Yes, yes, I'll marry you." Liam kissed her, and it felt like every good decision he'd ever made had led him to this moment. When they pulled apart, Ava was smiling through her tears. "Your daughter's going to have opinions about the wedding," she said. "Oh, definitely. She's already planning it in her head, I guarantee it." "Good. I want her to be part of it, all of it." "She will be." They sat there for a while, hands linked, and Liam thought about how far they'd come. From that night in the restaurant to this moment on the couch. All the fights and the fears and the moments when it would have been easier to walk away. But they hadn't walked away. They'd stayed. They'd fought. They'd chosen each other over and over again. The wedding was small, just close friends and family. Liam's daughter was the flower girl, and she took the job so seriously that Liam had to bite back a laugh when she marched down the aisle with the kind of focus usually reserved for surgeons. Ava looked stunning in a simple dress, her hair down, her smile brighter than he'd ever seen it. When they exchanged vows, Liam's voice shook. "I didn't think I'd get a second chance at this. At love, at family, at building something real. But you gave me that. You saw me when I was drowning, and you pulled me up. You didn't save me. I don't believe in that fairy tale. But you stood next to me and reminded me I was strong enough to save myself. And then you stayed. So I'm promising you now, in front of everyone here, that I'm staying too. For all of it. The good days and the hard days and every day in between." Ava's vows were simpler but no less powerful. "I spent most of my life afraid of letting people in, afraid of being vulnerable, afraid of losing control. And then I met you, and you made me want to be brave. You made me want to try. So that's what I'm promising you. I'm promising to keep trying, to keep showing up, to keep choosing us, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard." When the officiant pronounced them married, Liam kissed Ava and heard his daughter cheer from the front row, and he thought, "This is it. This is everything." The reception was loud and chaotic and perfect. Liam's daughter danced with Ava, both of them laughing, and Liam stood on the sidelines watching them and felt his chest fill with something he couldn't quite name. Gratitude, maybe, or peace, or just the simple, overwhelming relief of knowing he'd found his place in the world. Later, when the party was winding down, Ava pulled him aside. "I have something for you." She handed him a small box, and when he opened it, he found a key. "What's this?" "The key to the studio. I bought the building next door to my office. I'm turning it into a design space, and I want you to run it. Your own studio, your own clients, your own rules." Liam stared at her. "Ava, I can't." "Yes, you can. You've been talking about starting your own thing for months, so let's do it. Together. This is too much." "It's not. It's an investment. In you. In us." She smiled. "Besides, I'm tired of you complaining about your boss." Liam laughed, pulling her into his arms. "You're unbelievable." "I know. I love you. I love you too." They stood there, the sounds of the reception fading into the background. And Liam thought about the future, about the studio he'd run, the life they'd build, the family they'd become. It wasn't the life he'd imagined when he was sitting in that parking lot a year and a half ago, watching a woman he barely knew sit alone in a restaurant. But it was better. It was real. A few months later, Liam's daughter asked if she could call Ava Mom. They were at dinner, and the question came out of nowhere, the way kids' questions always did. Ava froze, her fork halfway to her mouth. "You want to call me Mom?" "Yeah, if that's okay." Liam watched Ava's eyes fill with tears, and she set down her fork, reaching across the table to take his daughter's hand. "That's more than okay. That's everything. So I can. You can." His daughter grinned, satisfied, and went back to eating like she hadn't just asked the most important question in the world. Liam met Ava's eyes across the table, and she was crying, but she was smiling too, and he knew they were both thinking the same thing. This was what they'd fought for. This was what it had all been for. That night, after his daughter, their daughter, was asleep, Liam and Ava sat on the couch, her head resting on his shoulder. "I never thought I'd have this," Ava said quietly. "Have what?" "A family, a home, something that feels like it's mine." "It is yours. We're yours." She turned to look at him. "You know what the hardest part of all this was?" "What?" "Learning to believe I deserved it." Liam kissed her forehead. "You do. You deserve all of it." "So do you." They sat there in the quiet, and Liam thought about the journey that had brought them here, the risk they'd taken, the battles they'd fought, the moments when it would have been easier to give up. But they hadn't. And now they had this, a life built on honesty and effort and the stubborn refusal to let fear win. It wasn't a fairy tale. It was better than that. It was real, imperfect and messy and beautiful in the way that real things always are. And Liam wouldn't trade it for anything. Because the truth was, love wasn't about grand gestures or perfect moments. It was about showing up day after day, even when it was hard. It was about choosing someone and letting them choose you back. It was about building something together, brick by brick, and trusting that what you were building was strong enough to last. And theirs was. Liam was sure of it. As he sat there with Ava in his arms and their daughter asleep down the hall, Liam felt something settle inside him, a kind of peace he'd been chasing for years. He'd found it. Not in perfection, but in the messy, complicated, beautiful reality of a life built with someone who saw him, who chose him, who stayed. And that, Liam thought, was the whole point. Not to avoid the mess, but to find someone willing to wade through it with you. Not to have all the answers, but to figure them out together. Not to wait for the perfect moment, but to make the imperfect ones matter. They'd done that, and they'd keep doing it for as long as they both lived, because that's what love was. Not a destination, but a choice you made over and over again. And Liam would keep choosing Ava, choosing their daughter, choosing this life they'd built together. For better or worse. For all of it.